So earlier this week, the finale for the DuckTales reboot came out. It's actually free to watch on Disney Now on that website without any subscription at all. You can just watch it for free. I guess they wanted to do that because the third season isn't on Disney Plus at the moment, so that's a way you can watch it if you don't have cable at the moment. The finale is an hour and 6 minutes long, which is almost a movie length, and I think that's fantastic because that's like a good way to end the show, is basically a movie. I actually watched the finale twice. I watched it once by myself and then again with friends. I've mentioned in previous videos how I think the DuckTales reboot is one of the best cartoons out of the 2010s. I look at it as a blueprint of how to do a reboot right. It has a different style from the original, it has a very comic-like color palette to it, and it has a lot of familiar faces from the original, but also a lot of new faces. And it reworked a lot of characters to make them a lot more distinct, like Huey, Dewey, and Louie are all very distinct in this series. They're not just red, blue, and green. And the writing throughout the show has been very sharp and witty. There are maybe only 2 episodes that I didn't care for that much, but the rest of the show is fantastic. And it's not just the original DuckTales they took influence from for this reboot. It was all of the Disney afternoon shows, and they created sort of their own universe for this show, which is really cool. That's probably explored the most with Darkwing Duck, which had a couple of featured episodes. And that also has a reboot in the works. I'm not sure if it's actually going to be connected to this version of DuckTales or not, but I hope it is. And the show has also had a lot of very heartfelt episodes about family and friendship and all that. It actually made me care a lot more about these characters than I ever had. Because I grew up with the Disney afternoon, though, when I was really little. And those shows were great, don't get me wrong, but I kinda like this better. It just goes to show that cartoon writers and directors have gotten better over the years. Because who do you think is working on these shows? It's people who grew up with the originals. But the finale itself, I think, was a really good way to send off the series. I know a lot of people have been disappointed that there's only 3 seasons of this, but I kind of like how tight-packed this series is. The first season was pretty much focused on Dewey, the second one was on Louie, and this one was on Huey. Not meaning every episode in the season was about them, but it had a focus on them. And this finale actually focuses a lot on Webby. I don't want to go into spoilers in case you haven't seen it, so I'll just be kind of vague in my thoughts. For the third season, they had been focused on finding these mysteries and going against this organization called FOUL, and really the main villain of this season was this buzzard named Bradford, who was the former CEO of Scrooge's company. There were quite a few twists and turns in this finale that I wasn't expecting. Though once it gets to a certain part, you kind of figure it out for yourself. That's really my only criticism, is that the characters take a while to get to that part. Like in previous episodes and seasons, there are a lot of references to the Disney afternoon stuff in this episode, as well as callbacks to previous references they've done. And I think Bradford is one of the more interesting villains they've had because of how he doesn't want to be a villain, but he wants to stop Scrooge. It leads to some pretty funny moments in his dialogue. Even though this episode is over an hour long, I somehow feel like I wanted a little bit more, like an epilogue of some sort. I think that's why I was so satisfied with the ending of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, is because they had an epilogue. But they will be doing a podcast featuring the cast of the show, and that's coming out later this month. Which is very interesting to have a podcast with the characters talking to each other. But overall, I did really enjoy this show. It's one of my favorite cartoons of the 2010s, and it continued the DuckTales legacy in a really good way. So if you have seen the DuckTales finale, or the show in general, tell me down in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye.